Hi everyone, my name is Marianne Tanner. I'm a part-time librarian here at PCC, and I'm embedded in your microbiology class along with Robin Shapiro, who's also a librarian at PCC. You can find both of our email addresses on the class list on your course D2L page, and you're welcome to reach out to us via email there if you could use additional help with your research this term. So in this video, I just want to give you an overview of how you might get started with some research for your homework assignments, either the microbes in me or microbes in my food assignments. And also just in general, how to do research for this class. So I wanted to show you on the class D2L page, if you scroll down from the very front page there, you'll see on the right-hand side, there's a widget for library with library links. There's a link there to get straight to the library website, to the articles and databases tab. What I want to show you today is the biology subject guide. So if you click there, that'll bring you to this biology research guide. And this is meant to be discipline-specific library resource information for you. So it can be a really good jumping off point as you start to dive into your research for this class. And I actually want to start with the Get Help tab. I mentioned that you can email either Robin or myself, but also there are other ways to get help from a librarian. And so from this tab, you'll see that you can chat with a librarian through this button. And any hours the library, PCC library is open, there should be a PCC librarian on the other side of this button, and that is 7 days a week. Outside of regular PCC library hours, there will be a librarian from somewhere else in Oregon staffing chat. So 24/7, there's somebody there that can help you get started with questions about research, about source evaluation, or about citation. You can also schedule an appointment to meet with a librarian online via Zoom. Those are 30-minute appointments. And again, that's also 7 days a week. Or you can meet with a librarian in person on any of the campuses, and that is Monday through Thursday. So just to know that those are ways that you can get help if you need it. I'm going to go back to the Get Started tab on this biology research guide. And I actually want to scroll down here to the second block that says databases for background information. So the library subscribes to over 120 different article and book databases. And these databases have digital articles from magazines, newspapers, books, and peer-reviewed journals. And the databases for background information are really good for giving you overview information on a topic. They're not going to have peer-reviewed research in them, but you can think of them as sort of like a really in-depth, reliable sort of Wikipedia almost. And the one that I want to show you is called Gale eBooks. So if you click into Gale eBooks, the first search I did here is for something that you were looking at maybe the beginning of this class, Streptococcus pyogenes. If I search for that word, I'm going to get some articles from specific research books. This one's the Gale Encyclopedia of Nursing and Allied Health, Gale Encyclopedia of Emerging Diseases. So these are medical reference books. This one's from the world of microbiology and immunology. Let's take a quick look at one of these just to see what it looks like. So you'll see this sort of defines the microorganism or the bacteria, gives a description through a little bit more of a scientific lens. I'll just pause here and share that in almost all of the library databases, there is going to be an option to get the source cited for you. So if you ended up using information from this article, for example, if you click the Cite button and choose APA, which is the citation style that I believe you're using for this class, you can copy and paste this, and this would come at the end of your paper as a reference that you used. I also want to point out there's a couple ways to save a source in the databases. Usually there's an option to email the article to yourself, and there's an option to grab the link to the article. So when you're working in the databases and you want to save an article, don't grab the link from the web address bar, which is what we would normally do. Instead, you want to look for a permanent link within the article, and that's the get link here. Okay, and I wanted to show you if I did that search using not the scientific term, but more common term for what that bacteria would do in the body. So here I have puerperal fever as the term, that I get totally different articles than when I searched for the bacteria that causes this infection. So these are from different books. These are looking at that in a more, through a more health or medical lens, and less through that scientific talking about the bacteria lens. So just to point out that the words you use to search are important. Sometimes it's helpful to use the common word or language, and sometimes it's really necessary to use the scientific terminology when you're searching for information. Another good place to go for background information that sometimes is a little more in-depth is doing a search in the library catalog for a book or an ebook on the topic. So if you're just getting started and maybe you're trying to get an overview of the human microbiome or the gut microbiome and trying to narrow down your focus to a specific microorganism or specific part of the body or maybe food fermentation, you could do a general search. And so here I'm just at the library homepage. And if you remember on your D2L, the homepage for this class, if you scroll down, there's a link to the library website there. So I'm going to search here for gut microbiome. And this isn't actually, this is not a database, right? This is, well, it is a database, but it's not a way that we would find articles. It's a way that we would mainly find books, ebooks, streaming videos in the library catalog. It's automatically going to search both PCC Library and Summit Libraries. Those are other libraries in the Pacific Northwest. If you just wanted to see what was at PCC, like you didn't have time to put a hold on a book from another college, for example, you could switch here to just search PCC Library for gut microbiome. And then you've got some options on the right-hand side. So you could limit to just print books, for example, or just streaming videos. I'm going to limit my format here to eBooks because I'm working from home and I want to see what books I could actually look at online from home. So I decided to take a look at this Gut Feelings, the Microbiome of Our Health. I went ahead and opened that book and got into the section on the microbiome and gut inflammatory disorders. And as I was sort of skimming through this, it gave me some ideas for specific bacteria or specific microorganisms that I might be able to focus on for my research. And so here I'm seeing lactobacillus, and I'm sort of reading more about that. So as you're trying to understand a little bit more about the human microbiome, just keep in mind there are these ways through like the Gale eBooks database or the Credo database, any of those overview background databases, or through the catalog through a book or an ebook that might give you some in-depth overview and help you to narrow your focus a little bit as well. So I want to switch gears now and talk a little bit about how you might find peer-reviewed research articles or scientific research articles. And these are going to be a different kind of source than a background article from a book like that we just looked at in those two other sources. So just to make sure that we're sort of on the same page here with peer-reviewed research articles, these are usually quite a bit longer than a magazine or newspaper article. They usually use the terminology or the lingo of the field. So sometimes there's a lot of jargon and scientific words in the article. They usually have multiple authors, and they usually begin with an abstract. An abstract, sort of the summary of what the article is saying, or if it was a study of what they were studying and what they found. This one's actually a review article, which means it's looking at a bunch of different research related to this topic. But what I wanted to point out is almost all peer-reviewed articles are going to have an introduction section. And that introduction section might be really useful for you too, to answer some of the questions that you're going to be wanting to answer about your microorganism. And just to scroll down and show you, the other qualities of a peer-reviewed research article, there's usually, again, quite long. They've got, and they usually have a discussion or conclusion section at the end, which can also be really useful for understanding the topic. And then, of course, there's a long list of references that the researchers used in their work at the end. So how would we find these kinds of articles? A couple different ways. The first is through a library database. So I'm going to go back to our biology research guide. And we're still just on this first Getting Started tab. The database is for research. So before I was showing you databases for background information, but here let's look at databases for research. And again, these are going to be primarily peer-reviewed research articles in these databases. I'm just going to look at this first one, Academic Search Premier, but you could choose any of these to search in. So I went into Academic Search Premier, and I went back to our Streptococcus pyogenes and used that as my search term. And I'm going to actually go ahead and put a check mark. This is just my first go at a search. I'm going to put a check mark where it says peer reviewed because that's what I'm after here. And I have 987 results. You'll see a link underneath each title for ways that you can access the article and the abstract as well underneath that tells you what they were studying and what they found and is a really good summary. And will tell you if you want to go a little deeper into looking at that article. If I click on the title of any of the articles, I've got those options again across the top. I can get an APA reference for the end of my paper, right? So any outside source that I use for my paper, I want to have that listed at the end of the paper in my references. And then I want to also have in-text citations within my paper that tells my teacher or my reader, where I got the information that I'm giving at that particular point in the paper. And I'll show you an example of that at the end of the video. Okay. And of course, ways to share, you can download the articles, you can email the articles to yourself, you can save directly to your Google Drive. The other thing I want to show you here is that as I add more search terms, I'm going to get fewer results. So you can definitely make your search more specific. You don't have to just use one main search term. You can add other terms, especially if you're looking for different aspects of a microorganism. But you'll see now instead of 987 articles, I've got 86. So it narrowed it down quite a bit. And just to know that that's how the database searching works, right? The more search terms you add in, the fewer articles you're going to get. So if you end up not finding any peer-reviewed research, it may be, take a look at the search terms that you're using and see if you've got too many search terms in there. So that's a quick look at using Academic Search Premier to find a peer-reviewed research article. I also want to show you Google Scholar. And Google Scholar is listed here as well under the Get Started tab. And when you're using Google Scholar, so Google Scholar will look for academic research on the web. Some of it's freely available and some of it's behind a paywall. And what's really helpful is to add PCC as your library in Google Scholar. And what this does is it tells Scholar to search the PCC databases all at one time, most of them anyway. So instead of going into Academic Search Premier and biological science databases and all of these different databases individually, if I set PCC as my library in Google Scholar, then then it'll search all of those databases at one time. So let me show you how to do that. If you go to the little hamburger icon on the upper left next to Google Scholar and click on that, go all the way down to Settings, and then Library Links. And I already set PCC on this browser, but for you, you would type in Portland Community College here, hit the search, put a check mark in it, and then hit Save. When the results come up in Google Scholar, so as an example here, I did lactobacillus and the gut microbiome. You want to look for the links that are to the right of the article title. Oftentimes, when you click on the title of the article itself, you might hit a paywall. So look for these links that are over to the right side. You'll see that, like for this one, for example, I could get the PDF freely through this website. And I could also go through the library databases to find it. So anytime it says find it at PCC, it should link me to that article in a PCC library database. One advantage of that is that citation piece. So the database will create the citation for me. So that might be one reason why linking through to the article in the database could be useful. What about if you find an article like this that doesn't have a link off to the right? Let's say you really want to see this article, but when you click on the title, it brings you through to a paywall. So don't pay for an article. There's a process called interlibrary loan where you can request that we get a digital copy of the article for you for free. Usually how that works is if you click these little arrows here, these two arrows underneath that article, a link will come up that says find it at PCC. So we'll see if this one, I didn't test this out, but we'll see if this works how it's supposed to. It looks like it is. So it'll get you to this screen and it says, please sign in to request items. So you would just sign in here with your MyPCC login, and usually 24 to 72 hours, we'll get a digital copy of that article for you sent to your email. So just know that that's available if an article is not, if you're hitting a paywall, go into Google Scholar and look for these little arrows here and use that Find It at PCC link to access the article. Sometimes knowing the right keywords to use to find the information you need can be tricky. So if you're getting stuck, that's a great time to get in touch with the librarian. Hop on the chat, make an appointment with us, send us an email, tell us what you're looking for and how we can help. Okay, the last thing that I wanted to touch on here, I'm going to go back to that biology research guide again and look at the tab that says Cite Your Sources. So we'll look at this box on the right for citing your sources in APA format. There's a style guide here. There's some citation examples. There's also some recommended citation generators like MyBib. When you find resources via a Google search, like on the free web, very often they're not going to have a ready-made reference for you in APA format. So that's where you could use a citation builder like this. And then I just wanted to talk just for a minute about your in-text citations compared to your references. So every outside source you use, right? Anything that you didn't already know or that's not common knowledge coming into your research, you want to have that source listed as a reference at the end of your paper. So you'll have a page at the end of your paper that says references. And this is where those APA citations that I was showing you in the databases, this is where you would put them on the last page in your references. The in-text citations, so let's look at this example here. Here's a sentence, right? And then the writer of the paper put their in-text citation at the end of that sentence before the period. So in-text citation is in parentheses, and it's usually the author or author's last names and the date of publication of the source. If there's no author for the article or the book, for example, it would be the title usually, and then same thing, the date of publication. The in-text citations should always have a reference that they link to at the end, right? So this in-text citation, as the reader of the paper, I could go to the last page and I could see, oh, here's the full reference for Derwig, and I could find that source if I wanted to, right? So whether you're paraphrasing or summarizing a source or using direct quotes from a source, any of those, you're going to have in-text citation